Yes, they are. What a series. Welcome into First Take. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Skip Bayless, Molly Karam, Stephen A's in San Francisco. He was covering the game last night. Guys, how we doing? Still hyped?
I'm great. Absolutely. Got the finals we all wanted.
That is a fact. I know I'm much better than Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook are at this moment.
Well, who isn't?
That's correct. Thank you.
All right, guys, let's work. Let's get into this rematch here. So last night, the Warriors became the third team to win a conference finals after trailing 3-1. Golden State outscored Oklahoma City 29-12 in the third to take control of the game and make it back to the NBA Finals. But first, let's react to Game 7 here. Stephen A., break it down. What happened last night?
Well, what happened, if you really want me to get straight to the point, is this. There were three superstars. I consider Klay Thompson a star, no doubt. But there were three superstars that were supposed to be on the court last night. Only one showed up, and he happened to be playing for the Golden State Warriors. And his name is Steph Curry, the reigning two-time league MVP. He showed up when it counted most, closed in the fourth quarter, finished with 24 points in the second half, finished the game with 36 points and 7 3-pointers, and put on an absolute show. It was just that simple. And while that was transpiring, whether it be with the 29-12 run in the third quarter, whether it be in the aftermath of Klay Thompson, who started off 0 for 7 and then got hot, hitting 4 3-pointers in the second quarter, regardless of any of that, while this was transpiring, Russell Westbrook was struggling, and Kevin Durant was a virtual no-show for the first 3 quarters. Wasn't even attempting shots. He was efficient, hit 4 of his 5 shots, played an efficient first half, tried to get others involved. But there are moments where your greatness is called upon. It's required because you sense what's transpiring, and at some point in time, you have to stop the bleeding. The Oklahoma City Thunder don't have one individual who can stop the bleeding. They have 2, and neither of them showed up to stop it when it counted most. Certainly, you're going to look at a variety of other things. Klay Thompson hitting 6 3-pointers, the bench, the Anderson Varejãos, the Leandro Barbosas, the Sean Livingstons, the Andre Iguodala, who started actually going through all of that. You're going to think about their contribution, which enabled Steph Curry to rest and what have you. But in the end, the game was there for both people to have. And Steph Curry said, "It's mine. You're not getting it." And Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook had no response, not when it counted most. Kevin Durant got a little hot in the fourth quarter, got a bit more aggressive, should have been aggressive a bit earlier. And as I said before, with great talent comes great responsibility. You have to recognize the moment. We know that Kevin Durant's a superstar. We know that he's one of the best players in the world. We know what he's capable of doing because we've seen him do it year in and year out over the course of his 9-year career. He is lethal. To go those 3 quarters by just attempting 12 shots just seemed inexcusable, particularly when the moment called for so much more because of what Steph Curry was doing. That's what it came down to me, Skip.
You know, we've been talking about Steph Curry all year long on this show, and there was a point late in the year, maybe early in the playoffs, where we both agreed we ran out of superlatives. And look, I'm going to boil this down for me to this. In the end, Golden State's basketball character ran deeper than Oklahoma City's. Golden State's basketball IQ ran much higher to me when it mattered most than Oklahoma City's. But in the very end, this little 6'3" willowy, slender guard named Steph Curry had a will that was just too strong for Oklahoma City's will. Whatever burns inside of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook could not match what burns inside of Steph Curry, because in the end, Stephen A., in Game 5 and in Game 6 and in Game 7, Steph Curry was just too good for Oklahoma City. However you want to boil that down, slice it, dice it, he was just too good. Intangibly, intangibly, you just finally knew, you sat back last night and knew that when the game was on the line, when it mattered most, Steph was going to do whatever it took to win that basketball game. And again, he had a whole lot of help from the second best shooter in the world in Klay Thompson, who merely made 17 of 29 threes in games 6 and 7. And when they needed him most to just keep them afloat, as they were down 13 in both of those games, 6 at Oklahoma City, 7 last night at Oracle, down 13, Klay was a big difference maker. Klay kept them on life support in those moments. But Stephen A., in the end, I'm going to say what I said yesterday. I keep hearing from people, and I heard from a whole bunch of them via text last night at halftime, who say that Steph's knee is maybe 50%. It may require some sort of surgical cleanup procedure after this season is over. And Stephen A., you saw what happened at the end of the half, right?
Yes, I did.
With that swoop to the hoop by Steph and that circus shot that he made high arching off the glass, and he took another big tumble into the photogs. And it looked like he grabbed his bad knee.
His left knee,
yeah. And so I'm thinking, man, the bad knee just looked like it got aggravated. It looked like it got worse. And as you just pointed out, in the third quarter, Golden State won 29-12. It was Oklahoma City's lowest output of the whole playoffs for a quarter. 12 points for Oklahoma City. Steph Curry made 3 out of 6 threes in the third quarter and basically took the game over as Russell Westbrook disappeared, and to a certain extent Kevin Durant disappeared. 12 points. So that was the guy on one knee, if you will, who took that game over. And yet, Stephen A., my final takeaway, I'm going to say this again. There were long stretches of this series when I felt so wrong about Oklahoma City, because they not only look like the better team, they look like the dominant team to me. In long stretches of this, even last night, did you have any doubts in the first half occasionally? I mean, they're up 13 with 6 minutes to go in the first half, and I'm thinking, man, they just might be able to make this stand up, because you do have 2 of the top, 5 players in the world in Durant and Westbrook, and you just thought, man, that's just too many points. Once again, life support for Golden State, and once again, the 2-time MVP, now unanimous MVP, was the unanimous best player on the floor when it mattered most. Your thoughts?
Well, there's a couple of other things that I wanted to point out. Number one, I like Billy Donovan a lot. I think Billy Donovan has proven, no disrespect, because I like Scott Brooks. Do I think he's worth $7 million a year to be the coach in Washington? No. I don't believe he's worth $7 million a year. But what the coaches are getting in terms of $4 to $5 million would have been more in that ballpark. But Billy Donovan has proven to me to be a better postseason coach than Scott Brooks thus far, just because of his willingness to roll the dice and to make changes. And the one thing that disappointed me last night was watching them in the second half. Billy Donovan didn't do that. They got back in the hero ball. Every play was in isolation, one-on-one. There was no movement of the basketball, and the guys around them was uninspired to play basketball with them, because those guys were not getting the other guys the ball. Dion Waiters couldn't make shots, but he came out ferocious, Skip, in an attack mode, and he was the only one. If you look at the minimal amount of shots that Steven Adams and Enes Kanter took in Game 7 last night, it was Dion Waiters who was the one getting them the ball.
I would agree.
Not Russell Westbrook, not Kevin Durant.
Yep.
It didn't happen, you know, and he was in attack mode. Steven Adams is ferocious, you know that.
Yep.
And then I looked at it and I said, what's going on here? And so they stopped moving the basketball in the second half. They weren't giving the other guys the ball. They got back into that hero ball, which is obviously not very smart. And I've had a Hall of Famers. Skip, I've had at least 5 Hall of Famers speak to me in the last 24 hours and say, OKC has the talent to compete with anybody. This is a championship squad. Unfortunately, what happens is you sit back and you wait for them to make a stupid mistake. That is what opponents do. And you wait to capitalize on it, because the elite teams are patient enough to say, just take your time, relax, They will not let you down. Skip, in a funny kind of way, basketball's version of an accident waiting to happen. And that's exactly what transpired last night. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you got to give Golden State credit because obviously it was an elite performance by an elite player, and Klay Thompson certainly helped. But in the end, you do find yourself scratching your head and a bit perplexed at what you saw from a lethal Oklahoma City team with two of the top 5 players in the world that somehow, some way, one decided not to show up until the fourth quarter. The other was struggling so hard he appeared over anxious and out of control and couldn't seem to get it going. Again, it wasn't a choke job. Game 6 was a choke job. Game 7, they just lost their way because the level of composure you would like them to have, Golden State already has. They play intelligent basketball when it counts. Oklahoma City does not.
Which brings me back, if you will allow me to a theme I have expressed over 7 years on this show. It's a theme that once made Kevin Durant so mad at me that he went after me publicly. It's a theme that hit me between the eyes again late last night, just when I thought Oklahoma City had a chance to hang in and make it a game in Game 7. I'm going to say this again. I feel sorry for Kevin Durant. You were down on him for not demanding the ball and taking more shots last night. I feel sorry for him because, and I'm just going to say this again, Stephen A., he is stuck with Russell Westbrook. I'm going to say it again. This team will never win a championship with Russell Westbrook as the primary decision maker. You can call him whatever he is, point guard, whatever. All I know is he led the playoffs once again in what's called usage rate. Russell Westbrook had the ball in his hands more than any player in all the playoffs, East or West. Russell Westbrook had the ball in his hands more than 34% of the time. And conversely, Russell Westbrook in the Western Conference Finals turned it over 31 times. That's the most in the last 30 years or since stats were even kept in the Western Conference Finals. So that's as far back as the stats go. 30 years of stats, Russell Westbrook's 31 turnovers, most ever in a Western Conference Finals. Try to get that through your head. He's the primary decision maker, and when you need him to have a feel for the game, to do the right thing at the right time, to get a 13-point lead home, what happened? What happened with 6 minutes to go last night? They're up 13. Remember the very ill-advised three-point shot that Russell took on, a solo, just bring it up the floor, and he thought he could do his jackknife and get Iguodala to foul him, if we can see that play. And the shot missed everything and somehow took the momentum out of the Thunder at that point. It looked like it was teetering on a blowout at Oracle. I don't think that would have happened, but it felt like that at that moment. Then what happened? They go back the other way, and Klay hits a three. And they go back the other way quickly again, and Klay hits another three. And all of a sudden, a 13-point lead that felt like teetering on blowout is down to 7, and it's a ball game. Now, back to your point. Kevin Durant made 4 of 5 shots in the first half. Well, that's pretty good, except it's not enough, as you point out. So is it Kevin's fault or Russell's fault for not feeling the game and getting the basketball? And by the way, in the first half, Russell took 12 shots to Kevin's 5. Russell made 5 out of 12 to 4 out of 5 for Kevin. That's the quote-unquote point guard's fault to me. And you always say Kevin should go demand the basketball. I don't know if you can demand it from that guy. He is tunnel visioned. He is my way or the highway. He's just going to go for broke.
Skip. You're not wrong. Again, you're just incomplete. Everything that you said about Russell Westbrook is right on the money. I'm sorry, everything you said about Russell Westbrook is right on the money. But it doesn't stop there. I am telling you right now, sitting there near courtside, Kevin Durant had plenty of opportunities to be more aggressive. He had plenty of opportunities to take the bull by the horn. There were plenty of instances where Russell Westbrook came up the court and called Kevin Durant's number and said, here you go. And Kevin Durant elected not to do much with it. And it harkens me back to a story. Let me tell you a quick story. This happened years ago. I'm covering the Philadelphia 76ers, and Larry Brown is complaining about Allen Iverson shooting the basketball too much. And Allen Iverson says, Stephen A., it's 24 seconds on the shot clock. We got 8 seconds to get the ball past half court. That leaves 16 seconds. He said, I get a ball up to Aaron McKee. He give it to George Lynch. George Lynch gives it to Tyrone Hill, who gives it to Dikembe Mutombo. And somehow, some way, it gets back to me with about 5 seconds left. If I got the ball, Stephen A., evidently they didn't want it. What do you want me to do? And I cracked up laughing, because even though I understand it's not that simplistic in at least half the situations, the other half it does come down to. So when you look at a Russell Westbrook and he shoots the ball 12 times, you have a valid point, Skip, in the first half. The problem is that that's not all that happened. Kevin Durant is a superstar as well. And Russell Westbrook has called his number on many occasions. And Kevin Durant, particularly off of Game 6, wasn't aggressive enough. So here's the conclusion that I have reached. Listening to you, watching the game, monitoring what's going on, I'll give you one or two solutions. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook either needs to part ways, or Sam Presti needs to find a way to go out and get somebody like a Mike Conley from the Memphis Grizzlies, who's going to be a free agent. Because Conley can defend, Conley can run a show, Conley ain't about all the splash and dash and all of that. He is, he's systematic and methodical in his approach. You need a guy like Conley. Take Russell Westbrook, put him at the 2, and leave Kevin Durant where he is. If you could keep this roster intact and get your hands like on a point guard like a Conley, which I don't know if they can do that, by the way, because they certainly don't have the cap space. But if you could find a way to get a Conley while keeping this roster intact and make him your point guard, that's fine. The problem with Russell Westbrook is I think we've gotten to a point where when he goes up, no matter the triple-doubles, no matter how great he can be, when it gets tight, somebody else needs to be making the decision.
I agree.
And that's what it comes down to.
I'm so with you on this, and my emotions get so mixed, as do yours. Look, does anybody play harder than Russell Westbrook? No. Does anybody make any more spectacular swoop to the hoop plays? Nobody does. Does anybody electrify, especially his home crowd, more than Russell does when he makes one of those spectacular shots and pounds his chest and glares at the opposition? Nobody does it better. It's fun. It's almost like Tiger-like, early Tiger back at 2000. You know, he roared and everybody cowered, and Russell comes off like that to me, where you say, my God, you know, this guy's a force of nature. You know, you can't mess with this guy. And then he discovered this last couple of years the triple-double stat, and I think it blinds everybody that he can pile up 13, 14 assists in a game to go with the rebound, his best rebounding guard in basketball. But what gets overlooked are the turnovers, the poor decisions, the lack of vision of what needs to happen when to get a 13. What's that?
Something else is missing too, Skip. You know what that is? I watched a team that appeared incredibly relaxed and comfortable and, dare I say, euphoric with Steph Curry. I watched a team that appeared rattled, periodically bickering, you know, and not cohesive enough with Russell Westbrook.
That is correct. Well said. And by the way, I got to bring this up, and I don't want to beat it to death, but Russell Westbrook, and we talked about it the next day on the show, he dared, after the Game 5 loss in Oakland, when they're up, you know, they're up 3-1, that made it 3-2 going back home, he dared to laugh at a question about Steph's defense. And it's just disrespectful. You can't do it. And you can say, oh, no big deal.
We're not going to agree there.
I do. I think I know Steph Curry's nature well enough, you don't tempt fate with him. You don't push those buttons. Yep.
You don't push those buttons.
You don't
push those buttons. You don't push those buttons because of what he can do offensively.
Correct.
But if you're Russell Westbrook and the question is about defense, even though it was not directed at him, the notion of anybody, including Steph Curry, who is usually being protected because he's not guarding the other team's elite scoring point guard. It is laughable to somebody like a Russell Westbrook and others when somebody talks about Steph's defense and guarding them, not just because they question his defense, but also because he's usually being protected. Russell Westbrook has to go out there and try to guard Steph Curry. Russell Westbrook, in fairness to Russell Westbrook, they do a lot of screens, double screens, and what have you for Steph Curry, man. I mean, look, it's almost not fair. As gifted as he is and as special and as elite as he is, it's almost not fair to look at a Russell Westbrook, a Damian Lillard, Chris Paul and others and get on them for Steph getting off because of the plays they run. Look at when he gives it to a Bogut or a Festus Ezeli or a Draymond Green or somebody. Look at how quick they give it back. Look at how it's almost second nature for them to set a screen or a pick for him. The protection that he gets in order to free him up to be the marksman that he is. No one player can fight. You have to, from a team perspective, you have to collectively scheme against a Steph Curry. So nobody else gets that kind of treatment. They probably don't deserve it because they can't shoot as well as he can. But it's not fair, in a sense, to say, well, Russell Westbrook can't guard Steph Curry. Even though Steph Curry, to me, is unguardable, so is Russell Westbrook, albeit for two different reasons. So I don't look at it the way that you look at it in terms of, oh, my goodness, to laugh is so disrespectful. But they're basically saying, are y'all watching this? Because this guy is protected a lot. And they could have been laughing about that, too.
Maybe. Okay. So to your point, it's possible in the biggest moments, Kevin Durant, for all his superstar talent, doesn't have whatever you want to call superstar intangibles. Maybe he's not made of tough enough stuff when it matters most. I'm talking about give me the ball and get out of my way. I'm going to score the basketball kind of intangibles. Maybe he doesn't.
He tried to do that. He tried to do that in the fourth quarter last night.
I give him credit,
but he waited too long. He waited too long. You want me to tell you? You want me to break this down real cold to you, Skip? Who Kevin Durant is right now? Kevin Durant is the modern day LeBron James.
I thought you were going to go there.
Kevin Durant is what LeBron James was before he won the title. We are now looking at Kevin Durant. His 28 points per game don't matter anymore. His perennial all-star status doesn't matter anymore. His recognition as one of the top 3 talents on the universe no longer matters. Kevin Durant has not won. Kevin Durant is approaching his 10th year in the NBA.
He is
one of the most lethal scorers we've ever seen, and he doesn't have one single championship to show for it. So from this point forward, everything that Kevin Durant does in the regular season means absolutely nothing.
I'm with you.
All that matters now with Kevin Durant is this. Are you going to win the championship or are you not? Because let me tell you something. You're not a winner until you win. And Kevin Durant has not won.
All right.
And unlike Chris Paul, unlike Carmelo Anthony, Kevin Durant has had the roster to do it.
Okay.
Remember that.
Okay, but remember this also. I'm not going to heap a majority of the blame just on Kevin. He does have a co-star who deserves co-blame, 50% of the blame.
That.
Okay, and I just want to remind everybody, this series was lost, obviously, back in Oklahoma City in Game 6. Oklahoma City was up 13 in that game, at home, before that crazy crowd. They were up 8 after 3 quarters. They were up 7 with 5 minutes to go. And Russell Westbrook in the last 139 of that game turned it over 4 times. Just remember that. Remember last night, They're up 6 at half at Oracle. And in the third quarter, they got run off the floor 29-12 as Russell Westbrook went 0 for 1 with 2 turnovers in that quarter. I'm sorry, co-blame at least. I can't let Russell Westbrook off the hook.
Well, let me tell you. Nobody's saying they'll let Russell Westbrook off the hook. But what you have to understand is that Russell Westbrook is what he is. He's a sensational yet mercurial talent. He's somebody that has greatness draped all over him.
Yep.
But sometimes it gets in his own way because his basketball and mental acuity doesn't match with his talent from time to time. That's the issue. So the point that we're making is that, okay, Russell has the ability, but he doesn't necessarily need to lead. Fair enough. The problem is Kevin Durant is smart. Kevin Durant is efficient.
I'll buy that.
Kevin Durant is lethal. Kevin Durant is a superstar. Kevin Durant is all of these things. And you've allowed this to evolve around you.
You have.
And then have the temerity, the unmitigated goal to allude to the possibility of leaving as if it's somebody other than you that is the cause of this demise.
Yeah.
Your greatness demands this. How many superstars with Kevin Durant talent can sit up there and say, well, I have Russell Westbrook and now Steven Adams and a Serge Ibaka, you know, and the crew that I have with an elite executive like Sam Presti, with an owner who's willing to cut the check, with a coach who's proven the man can coach, with an assistant like Mo Cheeks who was coaching his butt off last night, by the way, all right? And somehow, some way, I need to leave that situation. Who does that?
Well, I know one guy who might, and his name's Kevin Durant.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Interesting comparison there earlier, all tying together. All right, so much more to get into. So in the conference finals and finals, there have been 42 straight 3-1 series leads that have converted into victories. Last night, that was snapped. First Take just getting started. The guys are on fire. The Warriors are hyped to get back to the finals for the second straight season. We'll take a look, though, at why they're such heavy favorites to repeat. That's what's after the break. Stay with us.